60 million people dead, entire cities reduced to ash, a continent torn in two, and a world that would never be the same again. Most of us learned that World War II started with a gunshot, or rather, with the rumble of German tanks rolling into Poland on September 1st, 1939. But here's the truth that most history classes skip over. By that morning, the war had already been lost, years before the first shot was fired. The real story didn't begin in 1939. It began in a palace in Versailles in 1919. And the men who truly started World War II were not just Hitler. They were diplomats, economists, and world leaders who thought they were building peace. Imagine Europe in the summer of 1919. The Great War, what we now call World War I, has just ended after 4 catastrophic years. More than 17 million people are dead. Whole generations of young men gone. The survivors limp home to ruined economies, shattered cities, and broken hearts. Everyone is exhausted. Everyone wants peace. And everyone is furious. It is into this boiling cauldron of grief, rage, and desperation that the seeds of the next war are quietly, almost invisibly, planted. The Treaty of Versailles. It sounds like the name of something elegant, and it was signed in the most dazzling palace in all of Europe. But beneath the chandeliers and gilded ceilings, something deeply dangerous was taking shape. Germany, the defeated nation, was forced to sign, and the terms were brutal. Germany had to accept full blame for the war, pay the equivalent of trillions of dollars in reparations, hand over territories, dissolve its military. German citizens called it the diktat, the dictated peace. They hadn't negotiated it, they had been handed it. To millions of Germans, it wasn't the end of a war. It was a humiliation that demanded revenge. The famous economist John Maynard Keynes, Psychiatry, who attended the conference, walked out in disgust and warned the world, "This is not peace. This is an armistice for 20 years. He was right, almost to the year. Now jump forward a decade. It's 1929, and the world economy collapses almost overnight. The Great Depression hits Europe like a second war. In Germany, already struggling under Versailles, unemployment rockets to over 30%. People can't feed their families. Banks close. Life savings disappear. And when ordinary people are desperate, they stop looking for a reasonable solution. They start looking for someone to blame, and for someone who promises, loudly and convincingly, to fix it all. Germany in 1930 is a nation on the edge of a cliff. All it needs is someone to push it. Enter Adolf Hitler. In 1923, he was a failed art student leading a badly organized street rebellion. He ended up in prison. Most people laughed him off. But by 1933, he is Chancellor of Germany. And the world's reaction is, shockingly, a collective shrug. Hitler is magnetic on stage in a way that is almost impossible to fully understand today. He offers humiliated Germans a story. You didn't lose the war, and you were betrayed by Jews, by communists, by weak politicians. You are the master race, and I will restore Germany's glory. It was a lie built on hatred, but in a country drowning in poverty and shame, it landed like a lightning bolt. And here's the terrifying thing. It wasn't just the fanatics who followed him. It was teachers, doctors, businessmen, ordinary people ground down by circumstance who chose the comfort of a villain's story over the hard work of the truth. So where was the world while all of this was happening? After World War I, the victorious powers created the League of Nations, the world's first attempt at a body that could prevent future wars through collective action. It sounded like a good idea. It was a spectacular failure. The United States never even joined. The Senate refused to ratify it. Without American power and resources, the League was toothless. When Japan invaded Manchuria in 1931, the League condemned it and did nothing. When Italy invaded Ethiopia in 1935, it imposed sanctions that were so watered down, they were almost symbolic. The message sent to aggressive dictators was clear. There are no real consequences. The world is watching, and the world will blink. Which brings us to the decision that may have made World War II truly inevitable: appeasement. Britain and France, exhausted by the last war and terrified of another, adopted a policy of giving Hitler what he wanted, hoping he would stop. In 1936, Hitler marched troops into the Rhineland, a direct violation of Versailles. France and Britain did nothing. In 1938, he annexed Austria. Again, nothing. Then came the Sudetenland, the German-speaking part of Czechoslovakia. Hitler demanded it. At Munich, British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain flew to Germany twice and handed it over without even inviting Czechoslovakia to the negotiating table. He returned to London waving a piece of paper and declared, "Peace for our time." The crowds cheered. Churchill, watching from the sidelines, was not cheering. He told Parliament, "We have suffered a total and unmitigated defeat." Hitler, watching from Berlin, learned something crucial. The democracies were afraid. And fear, to a bully, is an invitation. And so we arrive at that gray September morning in 1939. At 4:45 a.m., German forces cross into Poland from 3 sides simultaneously. Over 1.5 million soldiers, tanks, bombers. The new doctrine of blitzkrieg, lightning war, unleashed on a country that never stood a chance. Britain and France, who had guaranteed Poland's independence, issue ultimatums to Germany. Hitler ignores them. 2 days later, they declare war. World War II has officially begun. But had it really just begun? Think about what we've traced. A punishing treaty that humiliated a nation, an economic collapse that created mass desperation. A demagogue who weaponized that desperation. An international body that could not act. And democratic leaders who chose the comfort of delay over the courage of confrontation. The invasion of Poland wasn't a beginning. It was an ending. The final inevitable consequence of 20 years of compounding failures. So what really started World War II? It wasn't Hitler alone, though he was the engine. It wasn't the invasion of Poland, though that was the match. It was a perfect, terrible storm. 4 peace terms designed more for punishment than for stability. The economic despair that made ordinary people vulnerable to extraordinary lies. The abdication of international responsibility and the deeply human instinct to look away from danger and hope it goes away. The most chilling lesson of World War II isn't about armies or weapons. It's about how catastrophe rarely arrives all at once. It arrives slowly, in steps that each seem survivable, until suddenly they aren't. As you go about your life today, in a world that is more connected, more complex, and in some ways more fragile than ever, it's worth asking, are we paying attention to the slow steps? History doesn't repeat itself. But as Mark Twain supposedly said, it does rhyme. And right now, somewhere in the world, it's humming a very familiar tune. If you found this video valuable, subscribe for more history that digs beneath the surface. The story of how we got here matters more than ever. We're just getting started.